Hi, Kevin here, coming to you live from the sunny west coast of Canada on beautiful Vancouver Island. And that's actually a picture of me in Venice, which is kind of ironic. For those of you who may be geographically challenged, you can see us on the map there. We're just north of Seattle and just west of Vancouver, marginally below the 49th parallel separating Canada from the United States. This webinar is being recorded, mistakes and all. And in actual fact, this is a recording because the original webinar was very choppy and had some issues. So I'm re-recording so you guys get the full benefit of the knowledge I wanted to give you today. It's important, in my opinion, to understand why something is done, not just how it is done. And I'm a great teacher, but I don't say that to brag, but to make a very important point. Even with all the will in the world, I cannot make you a WordPress security ninja during a single 45-minute video call or however long this ends up being. But after this presentation, your site will be safer, providing you take the appropriate steps as I outline them to you this evening. And by the appropriate steps, that will be different for everybody. Our aversity to risk is different for everybody. Okay, so the appropriate steps, you'll determine what they are. Doing nothing is not one of those appropriate steps, just so we're clear on that. If you don't do something, well, then no one can complain to me or the group organizers. I give no warranties, and I cannot control the outcome from any third-party solutions that you may use, or even those that I may recommend. Speaking of which, throughout this presentation, I will demonstrate equipment or services to you for no other reason than them being equipment or services that I have exhaustively researched and that I trust because I use them every day. I may provide links to these on completion of this presentation in the follow-up. These links will not be affiliated, and I make no money from them at all. I give them to you as a gift because I use them. You are responsible for your own due diligence. If you go buy something that I'm using and you like the look of it, you own that, I don't. So now that's out of the way, let's get cracking. Why is web security so important today? The top two reasons are, and these shouldn't surprise you, you all live in the most litigious country on the planet, and privacy. Particularly now that your citizens know that Uncle Sam is listening intently to everything they say or do, often without rational reason or recourse. And if you run a commercial online enterprise, people will share details with you on your website, personal details such as financial stuff, emails, maybe their home address, during a sales process. And they expect you to look after it and to guard it from exposure while it's in your care. Once they enter some details into a form on your website, it goes into the database, it's in your care. And sadly, we live in a world where personal responsibility has been abandoned and everyone is looking for an easy way out, a scapegoat, easy pickings, words along that effect. There are more lawyers in the United States than there are doctors. This is a fact. Proven by this. These are the official numbers from 2012 from the United States Department of Labor. Number of jobs, it's about the sixth column down, for physicians and surgeons, total 691,400. The same figure for lawyers is 759,800. So there are approximately 70,000 more lawyers than there are doctors, all looking for work every day. So please make sure you don't become their next meal ticket because you are careless with someone else's personal information. Because if you screw up and expose someone's private financial information and they get to know about it, a lawyer is going to try and prove it was your fault and likely make you pay. And we all know where that's going. I often get asked by clients, why did my web designer use this WordPress thingy if it is such a security risk? And they use words like thingy or other such expletives of more generic nature. They're not very happy sometimes. The problem is, in most cases, the answer is because the developer opened the door to WordPress during the design brief. And I do this with some of my clients. build it in WordPress, it's a great platform, blah, blah. And then you tell them all the benefits for it, and they jump on board. The client seizes the opportunity to save a little money because they're going to do all the development. Once you develop the main site, they're going to maintain it themselves. It's cheaper for them. It's not right for everybody. It's the power of the system and this beautiful interface that is so attractive to small business owners because it has cost-saving potential. Couple that with a plethora of customization options makes WordPress the top choice for all the content management systems available today. And that's why WordPress now powers 20% of the web, give or take, or approximately 72 million websites, and 1 in 5 of all new sites currently under development. So just like the Windows computer, WordPress is a target because it's very popular. And to any decent crook, that's like shooting fish in a barrel. WordPress has become a victim of its own success. And despite what people would have you believe, the WordPress core is very secure. But sadly, the real power of the system comes from those third-party integrations, those plugins and themes we all love so much. And that's why there are so many security issues with WordPress. And because WordPress is open source, anyone can inspect its core code or the thousands of themes and plugins available to expand WordPress that provide a ready vehicle, to infect any site that they are installed on. So please be wary of anyone who offers you anything free that's WordPress related. Unless you have your own server to host your WordPress site on, then hosting can also be problematic. And shared hosting is dangerous for WordPress websites because the keys are controlled by your hosting provider and not by you, the site owner. They control access, they control the version of PHP, what you can access, what you cannot access. It's not really very good. You can do your best to pick a high quality host, but there are other considerations such as cost and functionality that play a part in that process, and I can't control either of those when you're concerned. As I said in the intro video for this meetup, which I hope you watched, no website is totally secure, not even mine. So the best thing you can do is recognize where the weaknesses exist and to add layers of defense to limit the potential damage that could be caused in the event of a hack. And to use a common sense approach to security. Try to strike the right balance between security and functionality on your site. Otherwise, you can slow it down, you can lose sales, you can drive people up the wall, make them run through hoops. Sometimes, you've got to strike that right balance. But in truth, the biggest threat to WordPress is in fact user ignorance. People just don't think security, at least where their website is concerned. It's a part of their business. So right out the gate, you are risking your business and its reputation, which is what most businesses stand upon, on a piece of software that you don't fully understand or in fact respect enough to learn. Security is like charity in that they both begin at home. The most overlooked aspect of your website security is in fact from the machine you use to access your site. This is more so for a Windows-based machine because, like WordPress, it's widely used and there are more people targeting that platform. But Mac users are not immune either. This is from November of last year, and Wirelurker malware that targeted the Mac OS X. The intent here was to infect the Macintosh, and then if you plugged in your phone or your iPad to charge it or to update it, it would therefore then infect that. And obviously this was looking for information to steal in this particular case. If you use a Windows-based computer, I can guarantee at one point or another you've been infected by one or more of the millions of worms, trojans, and malware currently swimming in the soup of the internet. Remember that your antivirus software is a reactionary program, which means you are always behind the 8 ball when new viruses are in the wild. Some are harmless, others simply don't show up even when scanned by today's top-rated antivirus software because they don't know about them yet. They're still what they refer to as in the wild. CryptoLocker is ransomware, and basically it locked your computer, encrypted your hard drive until you paid the ransom. This was a very recent one that came out, affected both Windows and certain Apple users in Australia. But the really nasty ones are the keylogging worms. This type of program sits dormant on your machine and records every keystroke you make and reports that to the external server. These have kind of run out of favour, but they're still very prevalent. There's still millions of them around, and they're not really sexy, but they're deadly effective. The intent here is rather obvious. This is an intelligence tool designed to capture details about your banking habits and your login details for every site you use. It's because of their low profile that the NSA, CIA, FBI, etc., and any other spy agency around the world love them so much. These are the hardest type of worms to locate because they are passive listening programs. Now, I used to be a chief engineer of a nuclear submarine, and we used passive sonar to find our Russian counterparts. This is doing the same thing. Creates a hole in your computer and sits and listens. These things are deadly. The best defense against this type of worm and a few others, Stuxnet comes to mind, that's one of the NSA's spying tools, is military-grade security, which until recently was not available to the average consumer, but in fact it is now. The Fix Me Stick. Please don't laugh at the name, but this thing came out on Dragon's Den around the middle of 2014 up here in Canada, and it is a Canadian device. This was launched in late 2014, and this innovative solution is unlike anything else on the market and brings military-grade security to the domestic market. It's not a replacement for the traditional antivirus you already use. Antivirus programs, they scan your computer while it's in use for active viruses and threats. The Fix Me Stick, however, removes those viruses that are hidden from view by Windows code or Mac code, and is used when the machine is shut down. Essentially what you do is plug this thing in when the computer is shut down, or you boot from it when it's running. In the case of Windows, it shuts the machine down, boots from the stick, and then it interrogates every single file on your computer, including the complete operating system, and that's where most of these little nasties lurk. That is what governments and major corporations do to verify their systems are secure. It's cheaper than a lawsuit at $60 US in the United States on fixmestick.com. Up in Canada, it's a .ca website. It's available in a PC and a separate Mac version. There is a developer version of this, which means you can use it on unlimited client sites, and that's $300 a piece for each. And that's what I use for client sites because I scan their computers. Saves them buying one, but also allows me to see what's going on with their machine. When it comes to your computer, try to separate business from family and keep little Johnny off playing games on the machine you use for business and banking. Just a good tip there. Understand your antivirus software, and above all, use this regularly to keep your machine in top shape. If you buy a Fix Me Stick, use it about once a month. If you get infected, obviously use it more because there's a route into your computer. I would use a password manager. RoboForm is very good. It's both Mac and Windows compatible. I use personally 1Password, and I've heard LastPass. I've used it, but I wasn't that taken with it. But these are three reasonable options for you to use. And this is my web browser with my 1Password open. You can see this is my webmail from Shaw, one of the internet providers up here in Canada. And you can see that on the little drop down on the right hand side there, you'll see Shaw webmail is highlighted. If I click that now, it would enter the email and the password, the Shaw email and password for this, and log me in. I haven't had to touch a keystroke on my computer at all. And the database for this particular piece of software is encrypted with 256 character strings, so it's not like you can hack it anytime soon. So once your computer is locked down, it's time to shift your focus to your hosting account. Web hosting is almost as diverse as humanity itself, with thousands of providers providing millions of programs that you can sign up for. And it's equally difficult to get this right first time. I certainly didn't. So let me tell you a little story from my not too distant past. Way back in 2006 when I first started online, I was paying approximately $3.95 to Bluehost. So what's that? 8 years ago, and I'm almost 9 now, and they're still paying the same amount of money. Everything was fine for the first couple of years, but suddenly I got hacked by a dubious individual in Minsk in Russia, and he hacked one of my sites, which hacked them all. Now, I had them all on one single server. It was shared hosting, and once one was infected, they all got infected basically, and I lost control of all the sites. And I was making a decent living off it with AdSense sites back in 06, some Amazon stuff, affiliate sales, that sort of thing. It's a nice tidy little extra income. But I lost all that, and I said to Bluehost, what can I do to recover these sites? And they said basically nothing. We have to delete all the files on your sites, every single one, basically bomb my sites back to the Stone Age, and I would have to recover or rebuild those sites from scratch. I wasn't going to rebuild 2 years worth of work. So, needless to say, I was less than enthralled by the outcome, but the lesson was learned. Since then, I've tried about 5 or 6 different hosting companies trying to find the right fit. I've used iPage, iThemes, NetFirms, Fat Cow, to name but a few. Today, I use Liquid Web, because after many tries, I found a hosting company that thinks like I do. And in fairness, I do use a managed virtual private server with Liquid Web that cost me somewhere in the region of about $800 a year. Certainly not $3.95 a month, that's for sure. The simple lesson here is you get what you pay for in life. And if you pay $3.95 a month for hosting, well, enough said. Do your due diligence, I can barely say that, and buy the best hosting you can afford. It will pay off in the end, I promise you. Now, finally, having established a benchmark for our access to WordPress, we can turn our attention towards WordPress. But before we do, let's discuss security plugins. iTheme Security. I use this plugin for some of my clients, but I don't use it for others. It's a judgment call on my part, and as we go further into this, you'll understand why. The thing about any security plugin is, be it iThemes Security, WordFence, or SecureScan Pro, they all work basically the same way, or at least a variation of the same way. This is iTheme Security Pro. This is the professional version, which is a paid upgrade from the free iTheme Security. And you'll see this little blue box at the bottom. It's grayed out at the back, and there are 4 little selector switches on the left-hand side. First one says make a backup. Good advice. Before you make any changes to your website, you should back it up. It then says allow file updates. When you click that, you allow the plugin to make core code changes to your site on your behalf. It then says use the button below to enable default settings and one-click secure your site. And that's where I have a problem, because you push that and you just made a bunch of core code changes to your website and you have no idea what was done or where in fact that was done. So what happens 5 months from now, or even next week, when your site breaks because of a conflict and you have to go troubleshoot the problem? You can find yourself looking like this idiot. This is a gentleman, and I'll call him out for any particular reason. But yeah, I am. He is an idiot. This guy's gone to a WordPress developers forum in LinkedIn and asked for help because he's used a plugin that's changed the URL to his admin and he can't remember what it was. I'd be rather embarrassed if that was me, and he probably is. The changes you made are to the core code when you push that button, which means they are permanent changes that you are now scrambling to understand if you've got a conflict. These new breed of plugins come with all sorts of bells and whistles, half of which you will never make use of or fully understand. And because some of them are very large, they're also a resource hog, slowing down your site. You'll see this one, iTheme Security Pro, is around 3 megabytes on the disk, which can reflect in your overall site performance and the load speed. We'll show you this plugin and what it does when we get into the actual WordPress segment of the presentation. So I prefer to take common sense steps and apply selective code snippets to select functions that do the work of the plugin without the resource drain. And consequently, I also know where the code was placed because I placed it. All of which makes my life easier to manage when things do go awry, and sometimes they do, to the best of us. And that, folks, is the why. I'm now going to show you in exacting details just how I set up a new WordPress website. Each and every step can be applied to any WordPress site regardless of how long it's been online, be it a week, a year, or longer. And the entire process should take around 30 minutes from start to finish for even the most newbie amongst you. But I have taken a few shortcuts to try and keep you all awake and paying attention. So I'm now going to switch to my WordPress install. So please bear with me a moment or two while I do that. I know after this presentation that you're going to have questions, which I am happy to answer, within reason. My time is not free. For major stuff, we'll have to discuss, come to mutual arrangement. But if you've got a couple of simple questions, or you want to know how to do something, I'm more than willing to answer those questions. And for that reason, I've created a form, the link here, which you can go and ask your questions. You may also want to know more about WordPress security itself and the other steps you can take. And bear in mind that what I've shown you today, we have barely scratched the surface. What I've done is shown you some really good stuff, but there's way more ways into WordPress than just what I've shown you. And you really need to understand how to do this correctly if you're going to do it for yourself. More importantly, if you're going to do it for clients. If you go to this wordpressfordummies.co/security edition, you will find this page. If you're interested, I'm setting this up. It's coming sometime March, maybe as late as early April of 2015. And below this image on the site, you'll be able to see a link you can sign up for. You're under no obligation. If you're interested and you want to know how this works, and you want to pay a little bit of money for that information, I'm happy to provide it. The way I look upon this is you creating another string to your business by, instead of just offering WordPress design, you offer what the rest of people don't, and that's a secure WordPress design. Because you'll have all the tips and tricks and have all my knowledge downloaded to you, so you can go and learn to do what I do. And because this is constantly updated, you'll be able to keep abreast of what's happening and what I consider as threats, and you'll be able to advise your clients and all the rest of it, and it'll become an extremely good resource. The site will be available by the end of this week. In fact, if you're watching the video, it is in fact available to you now, and you can register an interest in the course. Naturally, you're under no obligation. If you're interested, you are. I've said it before. If you're not, I fully understand that. So that's all I have for you today, and I hope you feel you got your money's worth. This is Kevin from Victoria and WordPressForDummies.co and PioneerWordPressSecurity.com signing off. Have a good night, and we'll catch you somewhere else another day. Thanks and bye-bye now. Okay, so here we are in your typical WordPress dashboard. We're in the plugins folder here. I've pre-installed a bunch of plugins here just to get a jump start on this, and we'll go through each of these plugins in a minute. But to be fair, I must warn you that this is not live on the web. The site that I'm going to use, that I've set up for this demonstration, is not live on the web. I develop using desktop server on my computer. But everything you see here that I do on my computer will work exactly the same way it does on the web. Obviously, some hosts vary, but everything I show you will work exactly as I show you in this presentation. So don't worry too much about that. And like I said, I've installed these bunch of plugins, but the first thing I do when I install a brand new site is nothing to do with WordPress. I go into the cPanel. And here is a cPanel for one of my live properties, pioneercentral.com. And if you go into the file manager down here, you'll come up with this file, this bunch of files. Actually, you won't. You'll come up with this, which is the root. Okay. So if we go into public HTML, what we're going to see is a typical configuration for WordPress, plus a bunch of other WordPress installations I've got there in various other files and folders. But this is the actual WordPress installation we're looking at. And your typical installation has the configuration file, which in fact has your database in it. Okay, so if you click that and go up to your view, you can see that all your username and everything is available, your salt, your database table prefix, which in this case is WP, and it shouldn't be, but that's a whole different story. And obviously you don't want this file falling into the hands of the wrong person, because they could basically take over your site. They could add stuff to the database that could do all sorts of nasties to your WordPress installation. So what we're going to do is we're going to move it from here, and we're going to go and put it up one level up here in the root. Now this root folder is at the root of your web server, not inside WordPress. And basically it's a much safer place for your configuration file to lie, especially knowing what it contains. So the way you do that is you go into public HTML, you find the configuration file you want to move, and you select it. You then go up to the top bar and you find this move file. Click that. Now I only have public HTML because that's the lowest level that the public can see, and that's where the file resides if it's the main website. So you're going to take that public out, leave the / in, and we're going to click move file, and you'll watch it disappear. Okay, but it hasn't gone, at least not completely gone. It's gone somewhere. It's gone up here, and there it is right there. This configuration file is driving this WordPress installation. Now if you have a site like this, which is a subdomain or a subsite, do not do this for that. Okay, you have to do something slightly different. So if we go back up 2 levels, back up to our root here, you'll notice I have a folder called WP config. This is the main site. This is where all the other configuration files lie for the other sites that I've moved them for. These are the actual configuration files. So if I go and view that, you'll see this looks like a normal configuration file. And if I go up one level and then go into public HTML, and we'll find the security master, which is this one. We're going to open that, and we're going to see what's in this configuration file. So again, we go select that and view, and you'll notice there's just this little line of code. It's an open PHP tag, a close PHP tag, and then in that line there is the code that's directing that file to where the real file is. Now this path has to be an absolute path for that file. So how do you find that? Well, if you go up one level, and we're now in the root, over here where the house sign is, it says /home/pioneer C. Now that will be your username that you usually have for your website. Then you'll have WP config, because that's what this file is. Okay. Then you'll have the name you gave to that file. Now I always call mine WP config- and then the name of the file it relates to. It helps me to remember where it come from if I ever make any changes to it, or I go into that file to make changes and go, oh, I moved that, and go back up. So this is where you'll find that file. So this is the file you would change. And if you look at that wp-config securitymaster.php, and we go up one level and we go into that security demo, and I open up that file again, the configuration file, you'll notice it says include home pioneer C wp config wconfig securitymaster.php. It's that simple. So if you want a subdomain or a folder with a WordPress installation in your main domain to do the same thing, then do as I've just shown you. So that's the first thing I do once I have set up a whole new installation of WordPress. The next thing I do is I go in and start looking to see what's been installed with it. Now this comes with every single WordPress installation. This is called the README file, the readme.html file, and it shows you the version of WordPress you're currently using. This is installed with every single version of WordPress. And it's really, really irritating, because what this is doing is this is telling everybody who knows where to look the version of WordPress you happen to be running. Now, if you know anything about WordPress, you know that WordPress is updated regularly by WordPress itself. And as part of that process, they detail specifically what they fixed in the previous version, and what security upgrades have been made from the previous version. Now, if you're not running the latest version and they come across this and say this was 3.9.1 or even 3.6 point something, as I've seen recently, then all you're going to do to find an exploit into this site is to go back to that installation, the release notes for that change, find out what was changed, and find the perfect target to exploit, and they will break into your site. That's why people say keep your version of WordPress at the most recent at all times. This file we don't need, so we should be able to get rid of it without any recourse. It won't affect the operations of the site one jot. So I'm going to go back to that page now, and there we are back at the home page. So how do you get rid of it? Well, that's easy. This is my website files on my computer. This is obviously what you'd see in your cPanel or whatever it is you use, your Plesk panel, when you install WordPress. And you'll see the readme.html file is up here. Select it. In this case, I'm going to go move to trash. Now, in your cPanel, you would see it here. Now, say you want to get rid of this file here. You'd select it and hit the delete key, which is this red X up the top, and it will delete that file. And that file then is gone, never to be returned. Now, if you do get rid of the files in your installation, if you get rid of that file out of here, when you update WordPress the next time, unless it's a major update, and WordPress will tell you if that's the case or not, if it's a major upgrade, then that HTML file will reappear, and you will have to go and delete it a second time. You don't need it, get rid of it, it's not important. So we'll just go back to our WordPress installation now. So here we are in our WordPress installation. We've moved the configuration file, we've deleted the readme.html file. There are other files people suggest to remove, such as the install folder, the install and install helper, and the upgrade file. They're not relevant. We'll leave those alone for now. The next thing I do is I install, or in this case I've already installed it, I activate my chosen backup solution. Now, I use Backup Buddy, I also use Backup Creator, and I also use WP Twin, depending on the configuration. Not every backup plugin works with every host. That's one thing I've learned, hence the reason why I have access to several different types for clients, because I don't control their hosting environment. So now it's activated. So I would go into Backup Buddy, I would set this up to create a backup, and I would save both the database and the whole site. Now what this is going to do is back up all these files, and then I can download the zip files and store them on my computer. Or you can upload them to Amazon S3, Dropbox, and a bunch of other places, and even iThemes has a thing called iThemes Stash if you want to store them at iThemes on their server. So now that I've installed Backup Buddy and I've taken my first backup, it's time to look at how I'm going to create this site to make it safe for me to launch and start bringing visitors to. One of the second things I do is I go to this plugin called Disable Comments. This is available from the WordPress repository, the plugin repository, and you activate that. And once you activate it, there are three options for this Disable Comment. It's already pre-selected on certain post types when you first enable the plugin. You can select it everywhere, or persistent mode, and you will see the message there, but we'll get to that in a minute. Or leave it on certain post types. If you select posts, pages, and media, comments will not appear on any of those types of on any of those pages, posts, or in any media. If you select everywhere, then if you select this instead, then as it says here, this option is global and will affect your entire site. Okay, there's a little thing over here. If you go read that, it'll tell you exactly what that means. Then you can use persistent mode. And it says here, selecting this option will make persistent changes to your database. Are you sure you want to enable it? I wouldn't recommend you do this because then you have no recourse. You cannot restore comments if you suddenly change your mind later on. And there's no requirement for you to do that. So I don't use that. Just use on certain post types and select all three and then hit Save Changes. Now what you've done, and the reason you've done this, I've noticed a recent spike in people using WordPress comments to upload malicious JavaScript in a comment. So they go to the bottom of a post or a page, you find the comment box, they copy and paste JavaScript code in that, and they submit that. Now if you have your comments set to auto approve, then as soon as that's approved it will trigger that JavaScript, and that you don't know what the hell that's done, and you've no idea what it's done to your site. And that's one of the ways they're getting in. So I use disable comments and stop people from doing that. If I want people to comment on one of my posts or pages, I will use a social media plugin, such as a Facebook plugin, to use social media as the means for my comments and my interaction with the general public. So that's why I use that particular plugin. Next, we're going to go and have a look at a couple of things that show up on our page. Now remember, we got rid of our README HTML file. Unfortunately, if we go into View Page Source, and I got there, for those who don't know, I right-click on my mouse pad, and I view Page Source. And it brings up the page source for that. Now, about somewhere down line 32 or so, in fact, there it is, 36. There's this code here. And this tells me that I'm still displaying my WordPress version for the world to see. And it's a meta name generator, content WordPress 4.1.1. Now we know that's the same as the README file because we saw that earlier. We need to get rid of this, and there are a couple of ways of doing it. We can activate a plugin, which is in here, or we can add a bunch of code to our functions.php file. Now, that's where this plugin comes in, because not everybody knows where the functions file is. But generally speaking, if you go into Appearances and the editor, this will give you the editor. What I did there. Editor. Okay, that's better. Go into the editor and you'll find yourself in the style sheet for the theme you're in. And all the files are displayed down the right-hand side here. We need to switch off this meta generator. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go up to this. We're going to go to our, make sure we're in the right theme. If you've got more than one, you can use the drop down. Okay, if you don't know what theme you're using, go to Themes and see which one is active. And this one says the 2014 here. These are all inactive. Okay, so we're going to go to 2014. 2014 selected. Theme functions. Go right to the very, very bottom of the theme functions file, and you'll see this last little cursor element here. Open two line breaks, and then take this code, this one here, and this will be provided to you. You don't need to do anything with it, just copy it. Go along the line here and click paste, and then update file. One word of warning before you do anything in any of these themes, code-wise, particularly in your htaccess file or your theme functions file, make sure you know what you're doing. Take a backup if you're unsure, because sometimes you can put the right code in and break your site and not know why. But if you just entered some code, then you know you've done something. So if you remove the code, it removes the issue. Now, if I reload this now, that line here will have been erased and there'll just be a gap. And you'll see there's a big space opened up on line 36. So now we're not leaking that information in the page source code. Okay, so now we're going to go in and we're going to change our profile. I'm going to do this for a reason. Okay. In the first name, you can put anything you like in here. I usually put my real name. And I always capitalize it. Again, it's something I've always done. Here's my username. Here's my name. Here's the nickname, what's commonly referred to as the nice name. It doesn't appear in capitals, okay? And then there's a drop down. So I'm going to go and save the changes I've just made, and I'll show you what happens. In your display name publicly as, you can select the name people see you as publicly. Now if I select Kevin, and I update the profile, remember my username and the name I'm asking them to display me as. If I go up to the front page of my site now and watch exactly what I do here, this is really, really important. / question mark. You see it's already come up. Hit enter. And you'll see that it's displaying my name on the author page as Kevin. The same up here in the browser. Okay? My name and the name of the site. What people do is they forget to fill in this. Okay, and what happens is this nickname is known as the nice name in WordPress, will reflect what this is. It won't be capitalized, and it'll have, because of what WordPress does with all headings in WordPress, it puts a little dash between them, a hyphen if you like. It'll put a hyphen between the two names, and if you don't put any of these details in, it'll display your real name, the username you have. It'll display it when they do the author equals 1 search. And if they change that number to 2, 3, 4, 5 or whatever, if you have 4 or 5 users who have their names in your database, they can find out the username for every single one of them and start trying to hack through those usernames. And heaven forbid you've got one of those usernames who's too lazy to find a proper name and has called himself admin. I mean, you've just blown yourself back to the Stone Age. So make sure that you fill these details in for you and you force others to do likewise. If they don't, remove their privileges. Take them out the site. They're a security risk. Okay, so there's another thing we can do here. We can actually change this nice name. Now, if I select this one and I update my profile and I then reload this page, you'll see it's given me my name. So that's what you would see normally because I've selected Kevin Baker. People would know straight away that's my real name, my real username. So we're going to get rid of this in the database. And you'll find this line. This is the username that I'm using right now is Kevin Baker. And my nice name is the non-capitalized version. Well, we can change that, because it tells you at the end there what your display name is over here. Okay? So if I actually go to profile and I change my display name to Kevin and I save that, and I then reload PHP my admin, go to the users, you'll see it's displaying my name as Kevin now. Kevin Baker there, capitalized Kevin Baker there. Okay, well, we're going to change this one, okay? Because I don't like that being even remotely associated with my real username. Despite what my display name is showing, there are ways to find this that I haven't shown you. Edit. Find the user nice name. Do not change anything else. And before you do any changes in your database, go into your WordPress platform, make a backup, mark it as the most latest, whatever it is that may be, date and time, my latest database and the date, whatever you use to file that for yourself so you remember that it's the latest one. Then come and do this. So we're going to select and delete that, and I'm going to put in there Roger Rabbit double B double T. Go down to here, it says go, hit go. And you'll notice my user login name is here, my user nice name is here, my display name is over here. None of them, well, with the exception of this one, relates to that. So if I go into my profile now and I reload that, I can now change my nickname if I wanted to Roger Rabbit, and then update the profile again. Now if we go up here where I had my original name and we refresh this again, it'll show Roger Rabbit. So my username is not displayed on any of the post or pages, my real username that is. That's a simple tweak. It's highly important you set up your profile, save your database, change it in the database, update your nice name in the database, and then change your display name inside WordPress so you're not leaking that to all and sundry. Okay, so now the profile is set up. I'm going to show you something that a lot of people see every day. I'm going to go up here. Now remember, my real name is not Roger Rabbit. My real login name hasn't changed. So I'm going to log out. And you see me, it's telling me that I am logged out. So it's reporting to me what I've done. So I'm now going to go and do a login. Oops, I have some issues with keys today. Okay, my real username. I'm going to type any junk in here because this is for demonstration purposes. I'm not going to log in. I'm going to click the login button. I don't want to save it. Now, it's giving me an error message here, but read what it's saying. Error. The password you entered for the username Kevin Baker is incorrect. Lost your password. It's this type of error reporting that tells everybody else they have half of your login credentials correct. So they would leave this in and they would target merely the password, and they'd use a piece of automation software to do that. They just set it running and off it would go until it got in through the password field. We need to make sure that this doesn't come up anything here. Either a message, we can deliver a message to them if we want. You can be nice or nasty. You can be funny or whatever, but you don't have to display this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into, I'm going to log in properly actually is what I'm going to do. I'm going to log in nicely and we're in. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove that error reporting. So I'm going to go again to Appearance and Editor. Find our theme functions.php file. Go down to the bottom. And again, I'll provide this code to you. I'm going to select this code and copy it. Go here. Oh, it did right next to the top. That was bizarre. Click here. Go down to and paste that in and update file. I'm then going to go up here and I'm going to log out. It's still telling me I'm logged out. I'm going to put in my username and I'm going to put in a junk password again. This time, although it's not letting me in, it's saying have a nice day. What have I done here? I've removed the code and replaced it with this message. So we'll go log back in. And we go back into Appearance and Editor, Theme Functions file, go down to the bottom. In that functions wrong login statement, right here it says have a nice day. It's held in quotation marks. You can put anything you like in there. You can put any statement, you can put a quote. I mean, don't go crazy because you'll break it. You could even leave it blank and just leave no message at all. But it's simply removed the error reporting on your login screen. So if someone does get your username right or your password right and the username wrong, they're not going to know which one's correct and which one's not. They just won't know if they've got it right or not until they get the combination exactly right. And you can imagine the odds have increased significantly in your favor in this eventuality. But we're going to go one step further with our login. Now, I'm sure you've all heard of two-step authentication. And what this is let's by showing you one of the competitors. I use several of these. This is one of them that I use. It's duo authentication, or duo security, should I say, using two-step authentication. There's also Rublon, LaunchKey, and good old Google two-step authentication. They all work in exactly the same way. They use what is known in the parlance as a pattern interrupt. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to enter your password, and this is Duo Security's way. You're going to enter your password into these fields as normal, and then you're going to hit login. It's going to send a message to an app on your smartphone, and it works on I know it works on iPhone and Android. I think they might even have a BlackBerry version and possibly even a Windows Phone version. Okay, you can use text message too and email with Duo Security. You can't use that with all of them. So it sends it in, tells you, that you've got a login on your site. Is it you, or words to that effect? If you push the little green button, it goes and logs you in. So this is how they work. They all work very similar. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the one I use, which in this particular case is called Clef. C-L-E-F. I'm going to activate Clef now, and I'll show you what this thing does. Now, it says activating it for the first time, get started. There are a bunch of things you can read there if you want to. Click get started. It says loading. Complete setup. I don't do any of this. I just click finish, read that, yep, got it, and then go to Clef settings. At the top here it says disable passwords for all Clef users. Yes, I definitely want to do that. And then you can pick which user profile has to use Clef. I always select everyone and leave that blank, but you could just select subscribers, any one of these, and it will only affect those people who are at that level. So if you select subscriber, then that's the level you're at. If you leave it blank, disable passwords for all users and hide the password login form. Absolutely, because then you're really taking the login form out of the picture. You can use API for WordPress mobile applications if you want. And then show Clef Wave as primary login option. That's automatically checked when you check this box here. Okay? You can create an override URL, and I strongly recommend that you do that. In this box, type whatever the hell you want. Okay? As soon as you get out of the box, it'll create this little blue override button here. Select it, and I drag it up here into an emergency WP folder where all of mine reside. And if you go there, it says security demonstration override URL. Now, if I wanted to get back to the old login, because for whatever reason I lost my phone, or I changed my phone number, or the app stopped working, any number of reasons there was a disconnect, I could log in with the normal login screen. But this URL is something you create and is hardly what you might call readily guessable. Okay. So once you've done all that and you're happy, click Save Changes just to make sure everything's been injected into the system. And you should be good to go. Okay, so we'll go back to the dashboard. And you'll see the clef down here. The setup is gone. You can disconnect it if you want, or you can add additional security if that's what you want to do. I've never looked at this, so I don't really know what it is. I use different systems, so I didn't look at it. So now we've got it in. What does that really mean? Well, I'm going to log out of my site, and I'm going to connect my cell phone to the computer so you can see the screen. Okay, so now you can see my phone. So just move this over the side for a minute so you can see what goes on here. This is my physical phone, you can see. You'll see it change to my screen in a second. And I'm going to go into this folder. And you'll see I have all the apps on the phone for those other three that I mentioned. And Clef. And iTheme Sync I'll get into later. So I'm going to hit Clef. Enter my PIN. And you see I'm logged in for 1 hour and 25 minutes further. If I click log out now, it's going to log me out of all the sites that I'm connected to. You'll see it change in a second. Now you'll see the waveform on the screen is jiggling and the waveform in the login panel on WordPress is kind of going up and down. This is a form of barcode scanner. So I'm going to place my phone, you won't see it, but I'm going to place my phone over the screen. It's going to line up and buzz, and it's going to log me in. Now the good thing about this is I can use this as a productivity tool because I can log myself in for 2 hours, and then in 2 hours time it will boot me out. So it's a good productivity tool for those that want it. All the other systems work very similar to this. Some use text messaging, some use email, some use this. It's entirely up to you which one you use. They all work very, very well. So I'll come out of that now. And I'll disconnect my iPhone. So that's two-step authentication, the one that I use. And it works very, very well. So now no one can actually get to your login screen, your admin login screen, so they can't utilize the most common hack method for your site. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about, or one of the last things, is a security plugin that I use a lot, but I use certain aspects of it. And that is the Security Auditing Malware Scanner and Hardening tool. I'm going to activate it. You generate an API by clicking this. It goes away to Security, gets an API, go to your dashboard, and that's it. The plugin is ready to go, or at least it will be when it's finished getting back to the dashboard. Now this is the Security dashboard. I'm going to go through each of the tabs and show you exactly what this system does. First things first, it'll tell you audit logs, authentication. In this case, the authentication key was added to the plugin for security, and that's a notice. These go by different colors depending what it is. And you'll get codes up here that tell you what's happened within changes to files, etc. Up here is one of the tools I use a lot of, and it's the malware scanner from Security. If you click this now, it's going to do a full malware scan on your site, and it's also going to see if you're blacklisted anywhere and tell you if you are. Okay, if you are, you can go to Security and say, okay, can you get me unblacklisted? You'll probably have to have your site cleaned, because that's usually what causes it. But generally speaking, they'll clean your site and get you reapproved in Google really, really quickly. The next one is a firewall. Now this is a particular cloud proxy firewall that you have to sign up for and pay additional money. I use this on some of my sites for my clients. If you have no SSL certificate on the site in question that you're trying to protect, it's $10 a month. If you have an SSL, it goes up to $20. That's $20 per month US. Well worth it if you can afford it. If you're running an e-commerce site. Then we're going into the next one, which is hardening. These are little things you can do, little tweaks you can make to files on your website, and they cost you nothing and they work really well. The top one is to protect the website by the firewall we mentioned earlier. Don't click that unless you intend to do that service. It then says remove WordPress version. Now remember when we went to the front page and we did the page source thing, and we went looking for the WordPress version here. This plugin does that automatically when you enable it, and that's what it's telling you there, that it's hidden. If it wasn't, it would do automatically and still be green and still saying it's hidden because it does it automatically. The uploads directory, WP content directory, and the includes directory, if you click these, it's going to place a .htaccess file in each of these directories. So the uploads directory, the content directory, and the WP includes directory. And because I like to be complete, I'm going to show you what that really means. So if we go to WP content now, you'll see there's this .htaccess file up here. Okay, if we click that, and in this case I'm going to open it with Notepad or text editor. You do this on your web browser you did earlier. You'll see this files *.php deny from all. That's what that hardening process has done to this file, this folder, sorry, the WP includes folder, and the uploads folder, WP content. My apologies. If you go into WP content, you've got one up there, and if you go into the uploads folder, you'll find another one there. Okay, so that's what those three things have done. And you can actually revert hardening, but don't bother, because what it does is it doesn't revert the hardening, because that file is a hard code change. I don't know why they have that here. I never really understood that. It'll also tell you your PHP version. Okay, if you're not using the latest version, this will be red. And you'll have to talk to your host about getting your PHP upgraded, because it's a bit of an issue. Okay, it'll tell you that your salt keys are properly created. These are keys that are in your WP configuration file, and we'll talk more about those in a little minute. And if you've got an admin user account, okay, this will be red, and it'll tell you you've got that. And there are other things it tells you which you can also do. You can remove the editor for plugins and themes, so people couldn't go in and make changes to plugins and themes from directly within WordPress. I don't recommend you do that unless you're the only one that edits those files, in which case you can do it. But if you've got other people that you use, if you use a webmaster or anybody else, you're going to lock everybody out, okay, including yourself. And you'd have to go into the server to get back to the file to remove the code to be able to go back in WordPress and make those changes. It's just not worth it unless you're really concerned that people can get in. So don't touch those unless you really need to. Then we go to post-hack. So let this load. Okay, these are your salt keys that I mentioned earlier. Okay. These can be changed directly from within this plugin. But be aware, because once you do, you tick that box and you hit generate new security keys, it's going to kick you and anybody else who's logged into the back end of the site. It's going to kick you out. Okay? Because it's going to generate a whole new bunch of salt keys and boot everybody out and take you back to the login screen. If that was your intention because someone's in there that shouldn't be, then that's a way of doing it. You can also reset user passwords. Okay, so you can select this, do that, reset user password, and it'll send a user email to that person so they can reset it. And you can reset plugins if you get an issue with them, depending on what that is. Okay. The next thing is a security tool that I find invaluable. Okay. All users, that should have. It hasn't generated a log yet. Okay, so any users, all users that you have on your site would be there. Admin user. How many admin users are? There's only one. And there's no data available because it's a new site. Logged in users. Obviously, I am. Okay, the date them logged in from, the IP address they came in from. This is the one I like. Failed logins. Now, obviously, there's no logins here. So let me show you what this looks like in a site that's been subject to brute force attack. I'm going to go to Quat now. This is one of my sites that I use. This is one that I use for testing. I build sites on this and I check that everything works on the web before I make it live on the client site. This is the last logins at Sakuri Security on that particular site. And you'll notice it's got username, password, IP address, date, time, and the user agent. The web browser they used to log in and the machine it was on. Okay? You'll notice the username is Kevin Baker now. Obviously, that's my username on this particular site. All my user sites have the same username or a very similar username. They've also tried admin, but notice the IPs are different. Okay, and they're all the same day but at different times. This is someone trying to hack the site because someone knows my username here, someone doesn't here. Okay, and they're trying lowercase and uppercase admin. This is a concerted attack on this site. Now, if I scroll down here, let's go down to about halfway. So we're already at 876 attempts between the 6th and the 22nd of February. Okay? So 6th to the 22nd is about 2 weeks. So 876 attempts to log in using the wrong credentials in 2 weeks. I guarantee this is happening to your site. You just don't know because you don't have this intelligence that I do. Now, this site is out in the wild for a reason. It's one of my feeder sites that I use to find intel on the current and latest threats. This I don't recommend unless you know what you're doing. But I do this so I can get a feedback from what's going on the web. This is all people trying to hack in. Now, the question is, how deep does it go? If halfway is approximately 876, then all the way down is going to be... Oops. 1,615, and that was actually just yesterday, March the 2nd at 2:22 p.m. Use my name. This is the password, obviously, which is hidden, the IP address, and the date. Now, this is unknown. So this could be, actually, all these unknown ones here, this could be someone using another WordPress website with a script on it to try and log in to my site. So that's one of the things that hackers do. They use WordPress to attack other WordPress sites. Sometimes in denial of service attacks, sometimes like this. So they don't know what this is. It's probably WordPress. So that's what happens on a real site on the web that you probably don't even know is happening, which is why I like this so much. So we have no fail logins on this site. If we go to settings, this is rather important for a number of reasons. This is going to send you information when things happen on your site. And it says here, consider brute force after. In this case, it's set to 30 failed logins per hour. If someone's really hammering your site, you're going to get an email about every 3 seconds. The best way to do this is to change this with a drop down to 480 failed logins per hour and click change. And now you'll see it says 480 failed logins. If you go to alert settings, it's going to send you alerts for all of these ones that are automatically selected on activation of this plugin. allow the login for the last login information, allow that. Take away the receive an email for successful login attempts. I mean, you can leave it up if you want, but if you log in, you're going to get an email from yourself. But if someone is trying to break into your site and they do get in, you'll also get an email for that. Receive an email for failed login attempts. You don't want that either. Just come in routinely and check. Or maybe you do, and that's entirely your choice. I don't. If someone changes something, like puts a new post, attachment or anything, receive an email for that. I don't want to know about that either. And then the last one is email alerts for a file is modified with the theme or plugin editor. If you disable the editor, you don't need this. I don't need it anyway. I don't want it. And then when you've done that, click Save Changes. That's what I do. You don't have to. You can do something completely different if you wish. Scanner settings. You can change what the scanner looks for when you do a scan on your site. To enable something, you click the Enable button. It goes from green to red. And I usually enable all of them. I want a full scan. I want to know exactly what's going on. There are some in blue. Site check counter, force scan, error logs, core integrity log check, last login, etc., etc. I leave those alone. Okay, and you can also last background scan. You can force that too. You can also ignore certain things, or certain files or directories or whatever else, and not scan those. Again, I leave all that alone. We've gone through the alert settings. You can ignore alerts. You can add something to this. It says it seems you disabled the email notification for new site content. If you didn't, you'd have those in there. You can add a trusted IP. Now, if you're the only one that logs in, this is also another way of locking down access to the login screen. So you'd go to one of the pages that says what your IP is. Now remember, that's also available on your login, last logins. If you go to your logged in users, the IP you're currently on is here. So if you go to the site settings and you go to your trusted IPs, you could enter that in here, click Add Entry, and then it would empty it in the list in here, and you'd be able to log in regardless, and anyone else wouldn't. You could also go to Site Info, and your IP is likely there, and it is host address. That'll be your IP address. I'd always verify the two are the same just in case, because some hosts have weird setups. So that covers security malware scanner. This is, I suppose, a security plugin, but it's not hardening your site, but it's giving you intelligence on what's happening on your site. Okay? Now, the last couple of things I want to look at are a couple of plugins I install. One's called Functionality, one's called WPHT Access Editor. If, for example, you've got a really big theme on your site and you've no idea where your theme's functions file is, then you can enable functionality and it'll create an additional field under your plugins list here. We've got editor and edit functions, and it'll also create another file down here. In this case, it'll be the name of the website. Okay, and this is a site-specific functionality plugin. So it's actually created a plugin and then created the function to change it there. If you want to add functions, if you want to add things to your functions.php file, but you don't know where it is, click that, and you'll have this child functions plugin. And you'll be able to just enter into there, put in whatever it is you want to put in, update your file, and that will add the changes to the child functions.php file. When this particularly comes in handy is if you have a client, like a couple that I've had, who like to change their theme on a regular basis and basically play around with things and they break it. Because as soon as you change the theme, you change out the theme functions file and all the changes you make to it disappear. Okay? So I use this for certain clients who can't leave their fingers out of the pie. Okay, and I don't tell them it exists either. Otherwise, they go play with that. And the last plugin I want to talk to you about does something similar for your htaccess file. If you don't know where it is, or for some reason one hasn't been generated, or whatever the case may be, you can activate this, and what it's going to do is create a new htaccess file. Well, it's going to create a copy of the original, and it's on the sidebar here. And if you go to the editor there, you can create a new one, because I don't have one right now according to this. So if I go and have a look at my files on the server, and I probably won't, if I go up to the core files, and you see there's not one showing up, so there's not one automatically generated on my computer. So if I click create now, it's going to create an htaccess file for me. And then you see it says view new htaccess file. If you had a htaccess file, you'd be able to view it straight away. I'm going to view mine now, and you'll see that it says created by WP8. I don't need that. I can get rid of that. But it's now created a file up here that if I open with text editor, you'll see that's the file. And the reason it didn't do that is because I didn't save the file. Otherwise, it should have done that. Okay, once you change anything on the htaccess file, it'll tell you to remove your old backup or restore the original. Okay, so if you remove the backup, so you can generate a new one with your new changes. So if you make a backup of the original, you change the file, it'll prompt you to remove that backup. So I would recommend you remove the old backup because it's stored in your uploads folder, and create a new backup. Okay, so you've always got the latest backup in your root folder, so if you need it, you can restore the htaccess file and get rid of it. Before you do anything with htaccess files, please know what you're doing. If you don't do it, or seek advice before you do it, or better still, make a backup so if you do screw it up, you can always restore it. Okay, they're just two convenience plugins that I use, again, sometimes for clients. And the last one I want to show you is this P3 plugin performance profiler. I'm going to activate that. This has got nothing to do with security and everything to do with the performance of your website. In Tools, P3 plugin profiler. What this does is it scans your site and tells you how fast it's loading. And if you've got any bottlenecks caused by plugins or themes or changes you've made, you'll be able to see it straight away. So if you start a scan, go to auto scan, and it will scan the entire site. It won't take very long. There's not much content on this site. Bigger sites will take longer. Okay, and then you can view the results. And it comes up in the form of a pie chart. You can also get advanced metrics that come in as a barcode, detailed breakdowns in graph form. This is the load time. This is the action of the various elements, which are listed here. Site load time is in yellow. The biggest one is WP core time. Well, that should be, because all this has to load first, and then the files for the site load. The theme itself, and then all the rest of it. So if you've got a bottleneck, say you've got this pie chart is like 3/4 of one plugin, that's causing you slow down speed. You look at the numbers here, you look how many MySQL queries, this is database queries, are being made to load the site, and how much the plugins are impacting the load side. This is 28.1%, so a little bit less than a third. So that tells me that my site should load in approximately half a second. Okay, and it'll tell you the plugins that are uploaded. Again, we're talking intelligence here, because sometimes you'll make a security change, that causes the site to slow down, especially if you're using a hardening system that puts a firewall on your site. Most of them don't, but it depends on the quality of the firewall, of course. But if it's slowing it down, you'll be able to see it here. Okay, the last thing I want to show you is how to sync all of your themes, plugins, upgrade WordPress, and everything else from a cell phone. This is some of the cool stuff that's happening in WordPress these days. This is from iThemes. Now, obviously, this is my iThemes sync, but if I go home, it's from the iThemes family, the guys that do Backup Buddy. I do a lot of business with this company because they're very good. They have their own iThemes security plugin, which we discussed earlier. But they also have this thing called Sync. And you can sync 10 sites for nada pennies, for nothing. Okay, what is it then? This is my installation from iThemes. It's sync.ithemes.com and obviously the install file. And this is my account. What is it? Well, if you go to one of my sites that got this on, and I'll bring up my my iPhone on the screen here. This is an app on my phone. You'll see that little iThemes sync. If I tap that, it'll say welcome back to me, and I can do anything I like on here to any of these sites. So if I wanted to go to this one, for example, you can see I need to be updating some stuff here. I haven't done a backup for a while. I can schedule one if I wanted to. I can see the profiles for people who are on there, the database, etc. For that, the destinations where that backup will go. I haven't set it up for this, otherwise it would have one. I can update something. So say Backup Buddy 5109. Now I'm on a subsite of this one. So if I click update now, it'll come up with this update to 5200. I click tap. It says updating. And I've just updated that plugin from my smartphone. Okay, I can update all the themes if I want. And if I go back, I can go to updates, and they're all in yellow, so that tells me they've all got updates in. And if I have sites that have been disconnected for any reason, there may be a conflict in a plugin or something, it'll disconnect the sites. These will be listed here. But all sites are listed initially. If they're red on the side, you can see the sidebar there that's just red here. These are all yellow. If you see any in green, they're all up to date. So go into Pioneer Central. Everything's up to date to there. So I can change another site if I want. And it'll go to that site. Alright, so there's lots of things you can do with this. Change the site again. Click the done. And you'll see that this one is one of the ones that goes to a firewall. So this doesn't really work well with that. That's why it's coming out like that. But you can basically do everything you want from your cell phone. Or you can do it, if you wanted to, from the sync installation on the web. So I need never have something that is out of date, because I can go onto my phone and check when updates are coming in and do it remotely. I don't even have to be logged in. I don't have to be anywhere near a computer, and it'll update all those sites for me. A word of caution though, and I always give this word of caution when it comes to updating things willy-nilly without checking what the update does. I've been bitten in the past by updating something and the site crashed, and I didn't know for 3 days. Cost my client a fortune. He was extremely mad at me. So what I tend to do is when I see an update come in, if I've updated it already on other sites and I know the update is good, then I'll update them. Otherwise, I wait 3 or 4 days until bug reports come in from other people who've updated in WordPress and found issues. Okay, so this is just a general user thing that all of us should do really when it comes to WordPress. So that covers all the things I wanted to cover in the WordPress installation today. Okay, so we've added some levels and layers of security to our WordPress website. And I appreciate that you're going to have questions, which I'm happy to answer within reason. My time is not limitless, and I certainly am not free over the long term. If you have a question, Please fill in the form you can find at the address below, and I'll do my very best to answer those as soon as possible. You may also want to know more about WordPress security and the other things you can do to secure your site. Because what I've shown you today is just the tip of the iceberg, at least as far as what needs to be done to secure your WordPress website. So go to wordpressfordummies.co/security edition, and you'll find this page, and you'll find a link to sign up to be notified when that course becomes available. This will be an in-depth security course showing you step by step how to secure your site from front to back. All the tools I use, all the techniques I use, every piece of code that you need. And you don't need to install iTheme Security or WordFence or any of the others because you'll have all the knowledge you need to avoid the drain they cause on your site. That's why I do what I do the way that I do it. To sign up to be notified, wordpressfordummies.co/security edition, or click the link below this video to be taken straight to that page. Thanks for watching. This is Kevin from WordPressfordummies.co signing off. Bye bye now.